Johnny passed the sex shop on Saint Laurent Street. Then he passed the old Pentecostal church and crossed himself. He wasn't bothered by the warnings begging him to repent, even though he was looking to kill his best friend Pinky that very night. Johnny really was a gorgeous thief. Tonight, he was wearing a black fedora over his dirty blonde hair, and his blue eyes peeked out from underneath. He had survived his father trying to kill him 3 times. Once, he had held him under the water in his bubble bath for a whole minute. Another time, he had thrown Johnny off the balcony and he landed in a pile of snow in just his underwear. Once, his father sent him to talk to a stranger wearing a trench coat with nothing on underneath. As a result, Johnny didn't fear death at all, and he had no morals, which gave him the wickedest smile on the strip. It was as though each homicide attempt had only made him more beautiful. As soon as Johnny caught sight of Mia, he felt a weird kind of relief. He'd secretly been hoping to run into her all night, all week in fact. All of a sudden, he felt like he could stop holding his breath. He exhaled, and the smoke from his cigarette looked like nylon stockings being pulled off a pair of skinny legs. He was convinced Mia looked like a character from a Dostoevsky novel, even though he'd never read one, because she was dressed in a flimsy black dress and was wearing a black sheepskin hat the way old men did, because her skin was pale and as thin as rolling paper, because she had these skinny legs and walked crooked like a day-old pony. Don't do anything bad to Pinky. He's the only really good person we know anymore. I know you love him, I do.
I think he can handle it.
Johnny had been wanting to take Mia out all week to the Portuguese ballroom. The ballroom's piano had that warped, hollow sound old pianos had, the ones that had crossed over the Atlantic in big boats full of immigrants. But he knew that before he could get to all that, he had to take care of Pinky. He gave Mia the key to his apartment and told her to wait up for him. Pinky had been laundering money for Johnny for years and was good at it too. He deposited money into children's savings accounts all over the city. The government never looked there. Problem was, Pinky also wrote poetry. It was something he'd started doing in juvenile detention to while away the hours in solitary confinement. But he was more than just a poet. He had the worst case of graphomania the juvie shrinks had ever seen. He had to write all the time, so all the screws had to do to get him to cough up dirt on Johnny was keep him in his cell for a few hours without a notebook or pen. After 14 hours, he gave up the whole operation for a pencil stub in a pad of strawberry shortcake stationery. When Pinky walked into the Cleopatra strip club that night, he had bench head from sleeping in the park. He was wearing a pretty posh suit that his social worker had bought him for his court date next month, but he'd been wearing it every day since he got it. Johnny watched from across the room and almost smiled, almost forgot that they weren't still friends. There was no one quite like Pinky, and he would miss him. He knocked back his drink, which was like liquid paper erasing whatever love he might have had left. He tried to think of Mia waiting for him back at his place, all warm and real. He thought of what she was going to look like with no clothes on, and her big eyes looking at him. He knew exactly what kind of girl she was. The kind of girl who told you she loved you on the first date.